Hey guys, this is Patrick. Um, all right, so let me straighten this out a little bit here, get it nice and okay. So I've been thinking today about something. Listening to the news and taking in the happenings of the G7 summit, and I mean the media is so pitiful the way they're trying to cover for Biden, but you know I'm at the point where I don't care, and here's why. I'm actually quite pleased with what's going on. Um, I am a big L libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, if you want to use that term as well. I think both are kind of interchangeable, at least in my case. And, you know, the United States is going through something that every major power in the world throughout history, every empire has gone through. What happens is um, a major empire, a major power develops, and as it gets larger, it develops an administrative state. Um, you can call it, it can be an interchangeable term with deep state, but deep state sounds too conspiratorial, and administrative state describes the situation just fine. So they develop bureaucracies and administrations to administer the empire. And over time, as a country gets larger and more influential and more powerful, they develop larger administrative states. Quick examples. So Rome, okay, in the case of Rome, the main administrative body was actually the military. What made Rome so powerful was that, unlike most societies at the time, they had a standing army. And that standing army became larger and larger and more influential. And they didn't only fight wars, they also did a lot of infrastructure, a lot of engineering projects. It was the single most powerful entity in the government. If you were powerful in the military, as we saw with when Rome transitioned from a republic to an empire, that the reason for that essentially was that the military became so powerful that they essentially annulled the republic, and it became a military dictatorship. Which lasted another 500 years. And over time, that administration, that military got more and more powerful, more and more corrupt, and more entrenched, and grew and grew. And it led to the general disintegration and decline of the Roman Empire. The same thing, as far as I can tell, has happened to every major empire. If we look at the Byzantine Empire, you had a group of administrators that started out as chamber wardens, I guess you can call them. They were eunuchs, and their job was to keep watch over the harem. So the harem needed to be watched over. Of course, the Greeks, being the Greeks, couldn't possibly imagine a woman having any major role or of power, any major, powerful positions. So what they did was they found men and they castrated them, and they said, now you're going to watch over the harem. Well, over time, these eunuchs, over hundreds of years, this administration of eunuchs got more and more powerful because they were close to the emperor of the Byzantine Empire, and so they became more and more powerful, and they had a lot to do with the general inefficiency and incompetence of the government, because they were all very corrupt, and they were very powerful, and that they contributed to the decline of the Byzantine Empire. And I can go on and on. Almost every major empire in history, from the various dynasties in China to the ancien regime of France. The French Revolution, one of the main reasons you had the French Revolution was because of a very corrupt administration that was initially, formed by Louis the 14th, I think. They called him the Sun King, and he was a very powerful king, mainly because he created this vast bureaucracy. Well, by the time Louis the 16th comes around, this bureaucracy is going around and extorting citizens and leading and just generally mistreating people, and that had a lot to do with the French Revolution. So that is a quick summary of where I'm at with the historical examples. So what the United States is going through right now is exactly the same thing, and I believe, and I think, my opinion is that it's we are at a point now where the administrative state cannot be fixed. It cannot be reformed. We have passed the event horizon to the general decline of the federal government. These people up in Washington are too powerful, too entrenched, and there's too goddamn many of them, and they're really running shit. And we saw that with Trump, how the administrative state went after Trump various times, and we've seen it throughout the history, recent history, if you paid attention. Well, in the case of Biden, I think this is great, because now at the head of our administrative state, because the president is the head of the executive branch, which encompasses most of the 3 million or so government employees. At the head now we have a brain-dead figurehead. There is no leadership. I can already see the federal government kind of descending into disarray. We see that with the DOJ. Merrick Garland is unable to stop lawyers within the DOJ from pursuing a case against the New York Times, in which they actually got a gag order put on the New York Times. And Merrick Garland, responding to the press, because they're all up in arms about it, he says, oh, it's not that easy just to stop the case. In other words, he has no control over the DOJ, which, if you pay attention, that's always been the case. The bureaucracies are always self-interested, doing little things on the side, and really determining a lot for what the president actually does. With Biden in control, I see it happening right now. I see just the complete lack of leadership is we have, like with the DOJ, we have these bureaucrats starting to do their own thing, and it's going to lead to chaos within the federal government and disarray, and hopefully a disintegration and let's say a castration of the federal government, and then the states can start to take back some of their sovereignty. The federal government, I said this to the Trump people all the time, when these catchy slogans, they're just as bad as the fucking Democrats with the cultishness sometimes, especially like the MAGA people. And they're like, oh, he's gonna drain the swamp. It's like, no, dude. No one is draining the swamp. No one can drain the swamp. The swamp has to drain on its own. The beast has to die on its own. No man or woman, because there have been plenty of competent female leaders in history. Okay, so no man or woman or man can fix Washington, D.C. So what we have to do, the best course of action, I've been saying this to everybody, is focus on your local area. Forget about what's going on in Washington, D.C. Let that beast kill itself. And it will eventually, because it's a rabid animal. And it's going to thrash around, and it's going to eventually succumb to its own sickness. And, I'm not... and I'm not saying the federal government's going to disappear completely, but see, what's already happening is you have Texas, for example. They're talking about building their own wall. That's going to be a big fight. That's one that's going to be interesting, because I'm sure the federal government is going to try to, if Abbott, who is kind of kind of a wishy-washy, neoconish kind of Republican. But if he actually follows through with that, we're going to see fireworks. And that's what needs to happen. It's the same thing with these voting rights laws. The states are starting to say, you know what? We're going to do our own thing. We're going to exert our own sovereignty, and to hell with the federal government. And that's the attitude we need. And then we don't have to do anything in Washington, D.C. We can just let them sit there in their little beltway bubble as they become less and less relevant. So I say, vote Biden. Biden is the best thing to happen to this country. If he runs in 2024, I'm going to vote for him, okay? And I think that anybody who believes in liberty, and personal sovereignty, as long as we keep, the Senate blockaded with the Republicans, and I don't want the Republicans to have power either, because the Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats. Look at the BDS movement. They're trying to illegalize. They attempt to make it illegal for people to boycott Israel. I have no problem with Israel, but that is a First Amendment issue. So they go around complaining about censorship, and then they censor people with the BDS issue. So anyway, that's my rant for today. Have a nice day. God bless America.